Hello and welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. Today I'm joined by David to look at the best captaincy options for Gameweek 23. David, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Had a pretty decent game week. My captain came in again, so I've got
Yeah.
kind of mixed feelings because obviously Salah got me some points, but last week we were bigging up Aubameyang, and I was very scared that he was going to go nuclear against West Ham, and just the opposite happened. And West Ham were incredible defensively. Arsenal were terrible offensively, completely bucking the trends in both directions. And it's always a shame when the guy we pick out to be a captain kind of flops, even if he wasn't in my team.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and we mentioned it on the Scoutcast as well. I was without Hazard as well, and without Richarlison, and particularly without Aubameyang. I just thought I'm in for a shocker of a week, and that didn't happen, thankfully for me. But yeah, no, I was surprised. But it shows that there's still some twists and turns left in the season. One twist and turn in particular involves the ankle of young Harry Kane. As we are recording on Tuesday, we don't know the full extent of this injury. The swelling hasn't gone down yet. So by the time you watch this video later in the week, we may have some more. You may have some more knowledge of this, but it's not looking good. It looks like he's almost certainly out for this weekend, and it's a matter of how long rather than if. But in his absence, Spurs have a great fixture. Now, are there actually any other Spurs assets that we should be considering for their game against Fulham?
Well, yeah, I think it's annoying because the first thing I did when I set my team at the end of last game week was it was Captain Kane straight away. That was the easy, obvious choice. Um, but when you think about it, they're not just going to be losing Kane for this game. They're also going to be losing Son, who's now gone off to the Asia Cup. And my initial reaction to them losing both of those players is, I'm not so sure that they'll be as good as they have been. And of course, the other thing is that a lot of the other alternatives, so Ericsson, Ali, Moura, I think has got a bit of an injury as well. There's Lamella as well. None of them kind of really on current form really give me too much to think. Oh, I want to go for that guy. It's a tough one, but obviously the fixture against Fulham is still very nice. So I think Spurs will win. So someone's going to have to do something. I mean, Fulham are still they made some defensive improvements. They're not allowing quite as many shots in the box as they were. Although they're still in the sort of bottom 6 and 7. Big chances that conceding is still quite high as well. And of course they were quite unlucky the way they conceded goals against Burnley. Both of them own goals.
Yeah, I mean
So
that says something in a way. It says that they're still all over the shop. I actually think Ali is a great option for the armband this week, not just to bring in, but for the armband. And here is why. Now, one of our colleagues at Fantasy Football Scout, Awesome O, has done a fantastic bit of research here, and it's something I remember from whenever Kane's out. So you always remember the times when Kane's out because it's not actually that common, but Ali has been traditionally the man that steps up. I'm not saying steps up as in he becomes a central striker. He steps up with the goals. So they've played 14 games since the beginning of the 2016-17 season. There's 14 games where Kane has been either completely absent or he's only had a cameo. So he's only just come on or got injured early. And of those, Spurs have won 10, drawn 3 and lost 1. So Spurs do well without Kane. They still do well without Kane, so that's a good thing. And the top scorer amongst those games is Ali with 10. There's 10 goals he scored across 14 games. And I remember particular games, particular runs of games as well where I've owned Ali. And I remember a particular game where he pretty much wrestled the penalty ball off Son to take it. And his comments after the match was very much kind of, it's my job. He just took it upon himself. Kane's not here. It's my job to drive forward. I mean, that's the kind of I don't think that's going to stop for any reason. So I think Ali could be a differential option here. But moving on to a kind of a more mainstream option with the absence of Kane, that leaves the door open really to one man to dominate the captaincy poll, I imagine, and our thoughts, and that's Mo Salah. He's got a lovely home game. I say lovely, but potentially lovely home game against Crystal Palace. But yeah, what do we think? I mean, Salah, just a no-brainer. Captain him.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the stage now where we were at it a couple of weeks ago. I think he's getting auto-captured by a lot of people now, and for good reason because, he can't stop scoring points. I think looking at my squad, for example, I think he's going to have to be my captain in the absence of Kane, depending on who I replace Kane with, which is TBC at this point. But I'm currently looking at my squad. It kind of feels like the obvious choice, and that will be the same for most people. Sort of going into a bit more detail. I get you're hesitant. You're a bit hesitant there to say it was a lovely home fixture against Palace. I mean, it's a lovely home fixture for me. Is like a Fulham or a Huddersfield or something like that. Palace, I'm kind of, I don't know. I never really know what to expect from them because they are capable of keeping things quite tight.
Yeah.
With Sacco and Tompkins, they've been quite good as a centre back pairing this year. I know obviously they conceded twice at home to Watford, but Watford seem to be one of these teams that like to sort of coupon bust away from home, and they seem to thrive off being kind of written off. So I'm actually not surprised that they scored against Palace. But I still think that Palace's defence is good enough to go to Anfield and just kind of sit there and just make it difficult for them. I mean, they did that to Man City, so why can't they do that to Liverpool? I suppose is the question to ask. I mean, looking at what Palace are like in away matches, obviously they're defensively they're better off normally at home. Only Liverpool and Chelsea have better home defensive records than Palace. But I was just looking at the last 4 away matches for Palace. Goal attempts in the box conceded is 30, which is very much in the top half. It's nowhere near the likes of Cardiff, who conceded 53 over the last 4 away matches. Watford 48, Man United 45. So they're a long way from being a team that are set for a thrashing. But definitely. Obviously, the flip side, of course, is that Liverpool are very dominant at home. It's just, can they break through that? And then on Salah himself, we did an article earlier this week about how we've started to notice that actually, the last 3 goals he scored have all been penalties.
Yes.
And of course, in that game against Brighton, that was very tight as well, because Brighton have been, as we mentioned last week and as we expected, that was a very tight game because Brighton have really kept the shot count down at home. Big chances conceded was very good as well, because they hadn't conceded very many. So, and then in that game, Salah's expected goals was 0.46, which is it's not awful, but it's still less than 1 goal. And that's when you take away the penalty, I should say. It's when you take away the penalty. So while penalties, that's great. When someone's on penalties, that's fantastic. But let's say Milner comes back into the team, maybe he comes off penalties. Obviously, he's won those 3 penalties, so we have to credit him for that, because even if he wasn't taking those 3 penalties, he would have got assist points for them. But it worries me a little bit that he's relying so much on those spot kicks when what you really want to see is someone who doesn't need to be fouled to get some points. Like he can score from open play anyway. And I'm sure that this little run will come to an end, and he will start doing bits in open play again. But it's another one of those weeks where I captained Salah because I had to last week, because he kind of felt like the best I could really muster, and it kind of feels like the same again. Like it's not quite clear cut this week. As in, I'm going to have to do it, but I'm not going, I think he's going to bag a hat trick. I think the best I can hope for is probably a goal or an assist.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, my default captain was actually Kane this week. I just thought he had a better fixture. I thought Kane away, Spurs away, they're great.
Yeah, it's the same here. Yeah,
they're great away, and I just thought he had the edge over Salah. What my crumbs of comfort though, so for those that are going Salah, and it'll be a hell of a lot of people, is that yes, Palace beat City on the road, but they still conceded twice. Okay, that's pretty good. So they also conceded 3 times recently on the road to West Ham, Chelsea and Brighton. So they're definitely leaky on the road. They definitely have the potential to concede 2 or 3 goals. But yeah, there is a slight hesitancy. I can see, I think there's going to be goals in this. I feel not as confident as if I was captaining Kane, but I feel quite confident. But here's another name, Firmino. Now I think Firmino could do well in this game as well. So last 4 home matches, only amongst all players, only Mitrovic has had more shots than Firmino over that period, last 4 home matches, and he of course scored a hat-trick against Arsenal, and his shot in the box rate is 1 every 23 minutes over that stretch, which is really good, and only Aubameyang and Mitrovic have a better rate there. So that I actually think that Firmino could be another option for if there's anyone still out there without Salah and doesn't want to captain him, Firmino is an alternative that is worth mentioning. But what do we think about Mane as well? So I know he's not as a popular option as well, but do we think that am I right in saying that he'll be facing Wan-Bissaka, who is the annihilator of wingers so far this season? Is that right? He'll be facing him. So do we think Mane just no go?
Yeah, obviously, Mane's going to be up against Wan-Bissaka, who's just been imperious this year. Been playing. He doesn't look like a kid. He looks like a guy who's been playing at right back for 10 years. So yeah, I wouldn't expect Liverpool to get much joy down that particular flank, even if they try it. I think he's going to be equal to everything they can do there. And of course, in terms of what he can do we know what he can do on the bonus, for example, because in that most recent game against Watford, he didn't score, he didn't assist, he didn't give a clean sheet, but he still got maximum bonus points. So that means he's doing everything you want a defender to do. So yeah, wouldn't think about Mane this week.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I'm a big fan of Firmino at the moment. Actually, very tempted to get him in myself. But yeah, got to be Salah for the captaincy. Right, we haven't got a contender to really compete with Salah just yet. But maybe Manchester United have that. Now they have, once again, I say a good fixture. It does seem a good fixture. It's at home to Brighton. Now I think there's some captaincy options here, particularly Pogba and Rashford. So the figures I've got up on the screen at the moment are the goals that have been scored in the Solskjaer era. And as we can see, Pogba and Rashford have absolutely dominated proceedings there. They've got 4 goals apiece, and Pogba in particular 4 assists there. So he's got a bit of everything, and that's good news for a captaincy, because you've got bonus, assists, and goals as well. So what do we think about Manchester United? Do you think, first of all, are they good options? And secondly, could they actually compete with Salah, considering he has Palace at home?
Well, yeah, they're fantastic options. I think, everybody can see that Solskjaer has just completely transformed Man United, and deserves a lot of credit for that. Pogba obviously is definitely the pick of the lot. I mean, we were just saying before we came on air, just looking at what Pogba's done in an underlying sense, it's just ridiculous. He just does everything.
Yeah.
He's pretty much top of he's top for shots on target last 4 game weeks by 4. So he's had 14, and then the second best is 10, who by the way is Rashford. So it's looking ridiculously good goal threat wise. But then also when you look at chances created last 4, only 3 people have had more than him. That's Sterling, Maddison, and Fraser are kind of the usual suspects as people expect to see out there this season anyway. So yeah, he just looks incredible, and he's definitely the form player. And out of those 4 guys there, I mean, easily if I owned all 4, I know you can't do that, but let's say you do. I'd pick Pogba definitely, because he just gives you that chance of lots of different things. Rashford obviously looks very exciting, and I'm not trying to knock him at all when I say he just really gives you goal threat, because he does give you great goal threat. But there's a reason he's a bit cheaper, in my opinion, is because he's not quite the creative star that Pogba is as well. As for the fixture, it's frustrating really, because actually it's Brighton again who kind of worried me last week, and they're worrying me a bit this week because. Yeah, away from home, again, goals conceded in the box, 26. Only 4 teams have done better than that, and that's Spurs, Man City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. So pretty good teams. They're the only teams that have done better than that. But then big chances conceded away from home. Brighton are the best. They've only conceded one.
Well, there's a stat.
So I don't know. It's that's why this particular week, I would probably rather go Salah than the Man United option, because. While Man United have been incredible attacking-wise, there will come a stage, I do think, and obviously the Spurs game, I think, probably counted as this, where they have to kind of break a team down who are kind of, well organised, basically, and not really trying to hurt them, because I think that's probably what Houghton will do. You're going up to Old Trafford and you look at the form Man United are in, I can't see Houghton trying to chase a game. No. I can see him just putting 11 men behind the ball. They can play their star centre-back, Duncan Duffy, who we all love.
Duncan Duffy.
And, so it's tricky to see that game as... It kind of really just depends on the outcome of the first maybe 20 minutes. Like, let's say that Man United get an early goal, then yeah, fine, I think Man United could win 3-0. But if it's getting to like the hour mark and Brighton have stood up to them, which the data is telling us that they can do, they did it to Liverpool, then, that's the situation that I don't really want my captain in. So... that would be the thing that would just put me off. But of course, Salah offers that great kind of auto captain, but it's still not. It's
Yeah,
still not the best. It's just, why did Kane have to get injured? It's sort of that would have been perfect. So
yeah.
there's lots of caveats about lots of these options this week, because really they were all second choice to Kane, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just to reiterate that point about Brighton as well, I just looked at the last 4 away matches just to see if that kind of season form was recent as well. And it is really. They're joint second best in terms of conceding big chances the last 4 away games. And only Leicester and Wolves had conceded less. That was ahead of Monday's match this week when I looked at those figures. But no clean sheets over those 4 matches, and they conceded 11 along the way. So they are there for the taking. It's just they're not going to give so many chances. You've got to be absolutely at your clinical best, really.
Yeah.
And I also think this is going to be one of those other tests for Solskjaer as well. So that Spurs game is a test. Can Manchester United do it against a big side? Well, I remember the Brighton game last season. Manchester United won, but only just. And another thing we discussed while we were off air was that in the bonus point system, it was Pascal Gross that ended up with bonus in that game, even though he was on the losing side, and that highlighted the work rate that Brighton put in there. So I think this is another test there. Can they break down a side that's basically going to be going there with one mission alone, prevent the other side from scoring? That's it. So I think, it's going to be an important test. But once again, good for Pogba, not as good as Salah. What about Man City, though? They looked in great form again last night against Wolves. A whole bunch of options as well for their trip to Huddersfield. Particularly Jesus as well. He could be an option as well. But yeah, what do we think about Man City options? And if we go for any of those ones for the armband, which is the best?
Yeah, loads of options. I think it was nice, unless you're a Wolves fan, to see Man City play like that the other night. I am well aware that there will be complaints about, I think, Bolly's red card, which I think kind of changed the game because it was quite similar to Company's against Salah. So, I don't really think... So I think City had things their own way, and I don't mean to say that in that they were favoured. I just mean, like, the game kind of panned out favourably for them. So, that... But to still see them capitalise, that's good. You're right, Jesus looks great, and we were recently looking at close range shots, and he's actually doing quite well for that, having not actually played that often this season. So he's very much a penalty box merchant, which is always good for a fantasy asset. Which is good. Sané, I thought looked great as well. I'm glad from a personal perspective that I've held on to him.
Yes, me too.
Another assist for him. People have been saying that. Obviously, Ozil had been the great German assister, but it looks like Sané has taken on that mantle now. Sterling looked, bright again. For me, he does play quite wide, which kind of worries me a bit. But of course, if you've got him, then you're backing him to do well, so you're going to consider him for the captaincy. I actually, to be honest, all of these options are great. I'll talk about Aguero in just a sec, but for me, the key here actually is the fixture. Because they're away at Huddersfield, who I'm going to assume, obviously we're recording this on Tuesday, I'm going to assume that by the weekend they might have a manager, but I'm going to assume that they don't.
Yes.
But even if they do, it's the guy won't have had much time to prep with them. There's a lot that needs doing there. I think everyone would agree with that. I think David Wagner would agree with that. In fact, that might have been the reason why he left.
Yes.
Because there is a lot of work to do. And so, just... That's borne out in the stats as well. Last 4 home matches, they're bottom of the pile for big chances conceded, 15. So I think the whole context of that game just kind of really, it's just going to be an easy routine 3 or 4-0 win for Man City, because I just can't really see anything in the data or in the fact that they're going to be they're not going to be prepped for it that tells me that Huddersfield can stand up to them. But just the one thing on Aguero, because the thing that always worries me about him, especially this year, one of the reasons I sold him obviously was his injury, but I've been thinking about moving him on even before I moved him on, because away from home, he's just not the same guy. So we sort of discussed this a little bit earlier on in the season, but just to kind of give people some updated stats on it. When you compare the two in the members area with the comparison tool, home versus away, if you penalty area touches per match goes from 6.9 down to 6.4, goal attempts goes from 4.2 to 3.1. Goal attempts in the box goes from 3.2 to 2.5, and then minutes per shot 15.7 at home, 24.4 away. So the away stats, they're not awful, but they just really don't compare to when he's at home. So obviously there were times earlier on in the season where we were faced with, maybe Salah at home, Kane at home, Hazard at home, some of the other options, but Aguero away, and we kind of went, well, do you know what? I think I'll leave it because you aren't producing on quite the same level you are at home. So it's always worth mentioning that with Aguero now that he seems to be back in the
I think so.
selection frame.
I think another issue with Aguero is Jesus' form. How do you drop him? I mean, one of the things I look at from a captaincy potential is double-digit haul potential. And Aguero's has had just two this season, really. First one, big one at home, game week 2. And the only other
that was
one,
against Huddersfield, we should mention.
It was against Huddersfield, but it was at home as well. As we mentioned, home and
yeah.
away is different. And the last was in game week 11, whereas Jesus, he's had 2 as well, and significantly less minutes. But game week 17 and game week 22 that's just gone by. So he's got that recent explosive form. I think if I was a risk taker, I would take a punt, because I think the potential for the most goals is this game. I think Man City could absolutely hammer Huddersfield. And the risk there is that Jesus keeps his place and keeps Aguero out. And on current form, that would be the logical move. But of course, we're dealing with Pep Roulette here as well. Another name I put out there, this perhaps not for the captaincy, but Mahrez actually appears to be the main away man there. So when Pep rotation really strikes, Mahrez has scored 4 on the road there. So Aguero's just had 2. And I noted that Sane was taken off on the 73rd minute last night, which would indicate his minutes are being preserved. And so, hopefully that means a start there for his owners. But of course, Mahrez can rotate far better with Sterling, and Sterling played the full 90. So I'm not suggesting Sterling's going to be definitely rested. I'm just saying that there is that risk there.
That's always there with him, isn't it?
And that's for me. If I was a Sterling owner and I was thinking I want to captain Sterling, I'd probably think twice, because I'm not convinced. I'm certainly not 100% convinced he'll start, and I think Sane is more likely to start. So if you're looking, I
think that has to be the bottom line on the Man City options, because I think, as you've mentioned there, I think we both think this is the game that has the most goals.
Yeah.
But it always just comes down to, how do you capitalise on that? It's a little bit unclear. Sterling, of course, as you mentioned, I think is probably the most at risk from people we think might start, because I think Jesus actually will could start ahead of Aguero. And then there will be people out there who've asked me, will I ever captain Sane again after he ended my run? And the answer is maybe, but not away from home against Huddersfield, when he could bench him, and of course Mendy possibly maybe coming back. So if it's a choice between Sane and Salah, then Salah hasn't hurt me this year as much as Sane did. So,
well, Sane is my vice captain this week, just in case something happens with Salah. I do think he is a good option this week, because, as you said, I just think it's the most goal-alicious of these games. Before we wrap up, shall we have a look at the fixtures again? And just, is there any other perhaps differential options that we haven't mentioned? I guess one area particularly is Arsenal against Chelsea. Is that just too tough to call, or do we think that Aubameyang's strong home form and Hazard's ability to he's got a pretty decent record against Arsenal over the years. Do we think either of those two could perhaps sneak in as a differential armband option?
Possibly. Chelsea's defence, I think I know they conceded to Newcastle, but largely they've been keeping it tight, and I kind of expect them to make it difficult for Arsenal to score. Arsenal's defence is just absolute bobbins. So I think, I just think, if you got Hazard, then maybe it'd be a risk, but I think it would be a calculated risk, because, as sort of we mentioned before, Hazard seems a lot more reliable away from home. He just, as a person, strikes me as the kind of guy that likes to, poop a party, basically. Which is why he's very good away from home. And he's also very good, and also why he's a bit of a troll at home. As long as he's annoying someone, Hazard is happy. So, that's just away from home. I mean, the stats are there as well. You can see that he's a lot more reliable away from home with his goal scoring anyway. And scored in this fixture last year as well. It was a penalty, I believe, that he won that was highly contentious. So hopefully more of the same, because that'll make for some good drama. Lots
of booze there. No, I think, it's very hard for anyone to compete on paper this week with Salah. Huge ownership as well. Yeah. And most of his owners will be captaining him as well. But I think we agree, it's that Man City fixture that looks the standout there. But which one to pick. We'll leave it to those who are watching to decide. But for now, David, thank you and good luck with the game week.
Cheers, and to you as well.